Modern game journalism is an absolute joke. If there's one thing that's given us all endless entertainment lately, it's been collectively mocking the consistently terrible and laughably embarrassing drivel that oozes out of game journalism. Whether it's their absurd claims that Eve's design in Stellar Blade is so unrealistic that it could make real women want to off themselves, or the laughable suggestion to avoid black myth Wukong because a developer made an edgy joke 2 decades ago, they never fail to bring something astoundingly idiotic to the table. It's like they compete to outdo themselves in sheer stupidity. Luckily for everyone watching at home, the idiocy in game journalism is nothing new. These clowns have been serving up a buffet of garbage takes for years, giving us endless material to mock and tear apart. So with that said, in today's episode we're going to take a delightful stroll down memory lane and revisit one of the most infamous, brain-dead and universally ridiculed screw-ups in game journalism history. This blunder was so epically stupid that, even after almost 20 years, it's still the butt of jokes online, and rightfully so. So join me as we revisit this notorious tale and poke fun at this IGN-induced disreputable disaster. I am Lady Decade, and this is the God Hand controversy and the most hated game review ever. If you're often tired of game journalists' ridiculous takes, as I am, and you want to formulate your own opinion, I know how you can experience tons upon tons of different video games without breaking the bank. Get up to 90% off thousands of AAA, indie, retro and modern titles by using my affiliate link via the pinned comment. I have something fun for everyone, so happy shopping, and on with discussing a disaster. The legendary God Hand. No, not what you gain after discovering naughty photos and videos online for the first time, but the weapon wielded by one of Capcom's more forgotten protagonists. For those who have played this one, many consider this title to be a high-quality cult favourite of theirs. But as you will learn as this story unfolds, the same sentiment would certainly not be held by IGN at the time. But before we even get into this dubious part of the story, we should first celebrate what sort of game God Hand is and why it was produced in the first place. As the 2000s got started, Capcom found itself in a new realm. The arcades they once dominated with the likes of Street Fighter 2 and the Versus series had fallen by the wayside. First by the incoming domination of 3D fighters such as Tekken and Virtua Fighter, and secondly by the sheer fact that home consoles rapidly grew in power, making arcades no longer financially viable. After all, why spend hundreds of dollars creating a hefty arcade machine in the hopes that an arcade will pick it up, when you can quickly print a disc and hope that GameStop or Best Buy would carry it? As for the future, the easy decision was made to go full steam ahead with innovative console gaming. By this point in time, Capcom had already had huge successes in the home market, effectively since they were one of the original Nintendo Entertainment System's big partners, with classics such as the Mega Man series and DuckTales providing an exclusive home experience. Things would quickly evolve with the Super Nintendo becoming a juggernaut, which included a great library of home arcade ports, and rapid expansion into Sega's territory would also take place once Capcom worked around contracts with Nintendo. When the PlayStation and 3DO came around, Capcom were more than ready to support all oncoming consoles with either home ports of their extensive arcade catalogue or brand new adventures that would only work in front of a glorious CRT in your living room. Year by year, Capcom were increasingly on a roll. By the later part of the 90s, Capcom was still churning out hits. For example, one of these titles was the legendary Resident Evil, at a time when horror action was an uncommon genre. The brave and somewhat experimental Capcom delivered an unexpected smash hit, launching yet another timeless IP into the stratosphere. Resident Evil is poignant in today's tale due to the fact that Shinji Mikami directed it. At this point, Mikami had only 4 Capcom titles under his belt: the Japanese exclusive Capcom Quiz and 3 Disney-related titles: Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Goof Troop and Disney's Aladdin, and as much as you might like one or two of those games, you have to admit that the success of Resident Evil pushed him to the next level. Past this point, taking leadership roles, Mikami would help deliver banger after banger, including plenty of Resident Evil games, launching the Dino Crisis series, and functioning as an executive producer on the first Devil May Cry game. But it is, of course, God Hand, a title that he directed in 2006, which would lay the groundwork for one of the biggest game journalism controversies ever to take place. So let's dig into discussing this cult favourite. God Hand was a PlayStation 2 exclusive title as outlined and directed by Shinji Mikami and produced by Atsushi Inaba. The game would be developed by Capcom's partner Clover Studios and released between September 2006 and February 2007 globally. The game would quickly garner a solid reputation and become known amongst gamers of the era for its intense difficulty, innovative combat system and quirky offbeat humour. Before this, there really was never anything quite like God Hand. The core of God Hand lies in its highly customizable combat system. Players control Jean, a martial artist endowed with the God Hand, a mystical power that grants him incredible strength and speed. The game's combat is entirely based on player input, allowing players to assign a variety of moves from a list of over 100 attacks to different buttons, enabling the creation of custom combos. The combat is fast-paced and focuses on dodging, countering and chaining together attacks to defeat increasingly difficult enemies. The dynamic difficulty system in the game, called the dynamic level, adjusts on the fly based on how well the player is performing, raising the stakes for skilled players by making enemies more aggressive as the difficulty escalates. Jean's God Hand can be unleashed when a tension gauge in the game is maxed out, turning him into an unstoppable rage machine with amplified power and speed. The God Hand itself is a central mechanic. Jean can activate this powerful ability to temporarily enter a heightened state where his attacks are faster and stronger, giving him a much needed edge in combat. Additionally, players can unleash devastating special attacks, often with over-the-top animations to clear out tough enemies or large groups. These mechanics give the game an empowering sense of progression, but they also require precision and timing to be used effectively. As already mentioned, one of the defining aspects of God Hand is its eccentric sense of humour and style. The game doesn't take itself too seriously, featuring bizarre enemies such as a gorilla in a lucha libre mask and a pair of dominatrix sisters, as well as absurd dialogue and comical situations. This humour is often self-referential, poking fun at action game cliches and creating a playful, tongue-in-cheek atmosphere. Visually, God Hand adopts a cartoonish, exaggerated art style. Though it was not particularly praised for its graphics upon release, the game's visual identity is distinctive, especially when paired with its wacky character designs and flashy attack animations. The soundtrack, which mixes funky beats with energetic rock, complements the game's fast-paced action, while the voice acting adds to the humorous, over-the-top feel of the entire experience. Essentially, God Hand is a great, somewhat experimental title that is a far cry in quality from some of the offerings of today. For those who are following along with what we knew about the development process behind this game, keen players were given the opportunity to learn more about the game in a preview of the title. Atsushi Inaba told GameSpy, "The concept is all about physical combat with a huge variety of moves. We've gotten rid of the guns and swords, stripped it down so to speak, and made the gameplay very stoic. Then we added a bunch of comical touches to liven it up. Perhaps all of that means it shares that same style as 80s action anime. I am confident that God Hand will deliver a worthwhile gaming experience. It differs from the famous games of the years past in that there is no guarantee you'll beat the game. You can't just follow a path through the game and beat it. I guess that is what separates it from the older games, but it makes me very happy to have this game compared to Final Fight. I guess it is up to the players who pick up the game to decide whether or not it is worthy of that comparison. My main hope is that players feel drawn into the experience and realise that there's much more to this game. It gets more fun as you play, so I hope everyone gets a chance to experience it and test their gaming skills." So God Hand was essentially designed as a game where the more you played, the better you became, allowing you to appreciate it more as you learned to take full advantage of its mechanics. It sounds great, and certainly a title that game critics playing the game had the opportunity to appreciate when reviewing the title under crunch conditions. Nothing could possibly go wrong with such a scenario, right? Right? To give the devils their due, for the most part, most game journalists were successful in getting their heads around the game, so when God Hand was released, it received modest reviews. GameSpot, for example, would comment, "There are few legitimately good 3D beat-em-ups in the vein of classics like Double Dragon and Final Fight. But the team behind excellent games like Beautiful Joe and Okami has delivered one in God Hand, a self-conscious, silly, shamelessly repetitive, very challenging, fast-paced martial arts action game. God Hand isn't ambitious by any stretch, since it consists almost exclusively of you, as a cocky young fighter named Jean, thrashing all sorts of different thugs and their ridiculous masters using various over-the-top moves. The game demands fast reflexes and some well-practiced button mashing skills, and if all of this sounds like fun to you, then you'll probably love it." The publication would award the game an 8 out of 10, with their reader base collectively deciding on giving God Hand a 9.3 out of 10. Most who played this one loved it. But, as mentioned, the same couldn't be said for the game journalist who played it from IGN, rating the game a lowly 3 out of 10. IGN journalist Chris Roper would proceed to destroy the game, stating that Clover Studio delivers its oddest game yet, but unfortunately the joke's on us. Regarding the game's aesthetics and humour, he would add, "While Clover took a huge risk in hoping that this sort of off-kilter design would appeal to some gamers, and there will probably be a few folks out there who will dig this extremely niche design, by and large the joke simply falls flat. Dead flat. Put it this way. Had this game not been designed by Clover Studio, released by Capcom and hyped to some degree because of this, it would be quickly passed over and shunned by most who play it." He would go on to describe God Hand as an extremely tedious brawler where you'll generally mash a button or two until an enemy is dead. There are a few tactics of sorts mixed in, like choosing the best times to use a slower but more powerful move, but in large part you'll be mashing buttons until everyone is finished. It's kind of funny the first time you're able to stomp on someone's head with your leg moving at Mach 3, but this gets old quickly. The IGN final verdict would be, "The bottom line is that God Hand quickly becomes a boring, annoying and frustrating game. Why should you be forced to try and complete a level with no starting health when you have no hope of survival and will just need to reload a minute later? What's fun in fighting the same annoying demon creatures over and over again when the fight was old the second time you tried it? Why, oh why, did Clover Studio put so much money into such a risky joke? And why did no one see that the joke didn't have a real punchline at any point in the development? Here's a better joke for free. What's green and has wheels? Grass. I lied about the wheels." From here, while the journalist saw God Hand as a joke that missed the mark, large portions of the internet would be outraged by what they deemed to be an unfair review. But surely this is just one gamer's opinion against others, or was the situation more nuanced than that? For those who have played God Hand and read the criticism of the game from other sources, many felt it was unjustifiably low. This score was particularly shocking given that Clover Studio, the developer, had previously released banger after banger. Fans believed that the reviewer Chris Roper did not appreciate the game's unique style and humour. They argued that the review focused too much on the game's unconventional elements, such as its old-school mechanics and quirky humour, rather than its innovative combat system. Since the review described God Hand as borderline unplayable and criticised its graphics, camera system and difficulty, many fans felt that the review was overly harsh and focused too much on the game's flaws, failing to appreciate its intentionally offbeat and challenging design choices. Fans of the game and critics of the review argued that the 3.0 rating was disproportionately low when compared to other games from the same period that had similar issues with camera or difficulty, but received higher scores. The disparity between the tone of the review and the actual score also felt inconsistent. The review sparked a strong reaction from the gaming community. Many players who enjoyed the game felt that the review was unfair and did not reflect their positive experiences. This led to a significant amount of backlash, with some fans even going as far as calling for the reviewer's dismissal. Criticism would continue to mount against Chris Roper, with posts of message boards being readily available that describe him as being bad at action games. Some posts would describe Chris as not knowing how to play the game, with one criticising him that the way he describes his game plan was punch, punch, get hit, panic, backflip, and for some games, a plan that simple will get you through, but not for God Hand. In the eyes of many gamers, IGN and Chris Roper had become villain number one.
We are number one!
To compound issues further, while many who played God Hand would love and adore the game, sadly, it would never become a commercial success, making it a one-and-done gaming affair rather than a franchise that delivered sequel after sequel. Due to the fact that many deemed the game itself to be great, some would go as far as to lay the blame on IGN for its low sales, as they were the ones who had publicly buried the game before it had even made it into the hands of consumers. After the game's commercial failure, 1UP interviewed Inaba, completely unaware that he had already left the company. He would be asked about God Hand's future. Inaba replied, "I don't think you're going to be hearing anything from us anytime soon. We want the team to take time and decide what it wants to make and let it be known to the world." In October 2006, news broke that Clover Studios would close the following March, with the statement reading, "Clover Studio has met the goal of developing unique and creative original home video game software. However, in view of promoting a business strategy that concentrates management resources on a selected business to enhance the efficiency of the development power of the entire Capcom group, the dissolution of Clover Studio has been raised and passed at a board meeting." Clover Studios would close with God Hand as its last release, leaving a small portfolio of 6 titles over 3 years. God Hand and the studio that had produced it was dead. But were IGN really to blame for this one? Well, it's certainly a common belief in some gaming circles that IGN's low review score for God Hand played a role in its poor sales and the subsequent closure of Clover Studio. The truth is that the reality is likely more complex. God Hand was a game that received mixed reviews overall, not just from IGN. While IGN gave it a particularly low score, 3.0 out of 10, other reviewers praised the game for its challenging gameplay and unique style. The game has since achieved cult status amongst fans who appreciate its quirks and difficulty, but that doesn't necessarily mean it was ever a commercially viable game. Clover Studio's closure was likely influenced by multiple factors beyond the reception of a single game, and while all its titles are beloved, they are not commercial blockbusters. The decision to dissolve Clover Studio was probably based on broader financial strategies and the performance of multiple projects, not solely on God Hand's reception. In summary, while IGN's review might have influenced perceptions of God Hand, it's not fair to pin the game's commercial performance or the fate of Clover Studio solely on that review, no matter how poorly written many perceived its review to be. Amusingly, as we moved into the future, the internet never forgot about the 3 out of 10 review. However, well over a decade after the original article had been published, IGN made the bold decision that they were going to attempt to write about God Hand again. Mitchell Saltzman, an editorial producer for IGN working primarily as part of the gameplay team, would star in a video and write an article titled "In Defense of God Hand." In this piece, he proclaims himself to be a massive fan of action games, adding that there is one game he has always wanted to gush about, and that during his time at IGN has always seemed taboo. That game was God Hand, and he declared that it was time to clear the air. He would comment that, "I work at IGN, and I'd like to say that God Hand, a game that IGN dubbed awful 13 years ago, is in my opinion not just good, it's actually amazing." Speaking on the game, he would add that at its core, God Hand is a blast of a power trip. You're basically a shonen anime character. You can effortlessly dodge rapid-fire punches, blast enemies into walls at high speeds with just a simple strike, and dragon kick dudes into f***ing space. Playing devil's advocate at the end, he concluded that, "Look, God Hand is far from perfect. I get it. Even for its time, its environments are bland, its story is largely nonsense, its voice acting is spotty at best, and its sense of humour in cutscenes is juvenile to say the least. It's easy to see why God Hand isn't for everyone, but whether you love it or hate it, God Hand does things that no other game has done before or after, and for that, it's worth remembering. For me personally, it'll always have a spot reserved for it on my virtual top shelf of upper echelon action games. Maybe it can earn one on yours someday too. Wow, a rare W from IGN it seems. IGN's decision to publish an In Defense of God Hand article years after their initial review was, in my opinion, a genuinely classy move. It recognised the game's evolution into cult status and the fact that God Hand garnered a dedicated fanbase that appreciated its quirky gameplay and humour despite initial criticisms. By revisiting the game, IGN finally hinted that their journalists may have missed the mark, providing at the very least a level of closure to this bizarre gaming tale. Remember, if you're as tired of game journalists' ridiculous takes as I am and want to form your own opinions, I can help you get up to 90% off of thousands of titles for you to experience yourself. The only opinion you can truly trust is your own, so dive into these games, snag some bargains, and support independent voices like mine. Alternatively, if you'd like to support my work in a more personal way, you can gain access to my behind-the-scenes cosplay library and more by showing your support on Patreon. Thank you, Patriots, and I'll see you soon.